How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific 3 Eastern, Sundays 3 Pacific 6 Eastern, Saturday mornings with Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific 1 Eastern, Sundays with Andrew Zarian, and it is Wednesday here on the show. You know what that means? Tonight is AEW Dynamite. We finally got a bunch of stuff advertised for the show. 3 brand new segments added today, bringing us to 6. And obviously the big thing is they're advertising that Sting makes his final Dynamite appearance before retirement. We will see him again. But he will not be a regular. But we will see Sting again. We'll go over the full lineup for that show. We also got matches announced for Rampage on Friday. We got a SmackDown lineup. Revolution is this coming Sunday. And unfortunately, we must open with the passing of Mike Jones. Virgil has passed away. News of his passing announced by referee Mark Charles III, who noted Jones passed away peacefully this morning at a hospital, 61 years old. My dear friends, he wrote, "It is with great sorrow I bring news from the Jones family of the passing of our beloved Michael Jones, whom we know and loved as Virgil, Vincent, Soul Train Jones, and more. Passed away peacefully at the hospital this morning. I ask that you pray for him and his family. May his memory be eternal." Perhaps best known as Ted DiBiase's bodyguard Virgil, late 80s, early 90s. Eventually, he would turn on DiBiase after years of abuse. Feud culminated in him winning the $1 Million Championship at SummerSlam 91. Before signing with WWE, he wrestled as Soul Train Jones, once held the AWA Southern Tag Team titles with Rocky Johnson, ended up in WCW, part of the NWO, renamed Vincent, playing up on rumors that the name Virgil had been a rib on Dusty Rhodes' real name. We're going to talk more about Virgil after the break and tons of news today. Back in a moment, Observer Live.
There's 1, 2. Now he's got Bryan Alvarez. He whips him into the corner hard. Adam Firestorm following up, catches a boot to the face. Bryan Alvarez with another hard shot to the head. 1, 2. This is the most aggressive I've seen Bryan Alvarez today here in Portland Wrestling. Now he's got his knee across the throat. He's choking him, LC.
Well, it's like this week Alvarez has something to prove, brother. Something to prove to his sweet little lady over there.
Of course, Adam Firestorm with a big win over Black Dragon last week. Looking for another one here. There's a sunset flip. Is he going to go down? Yes, he is. Over he goes. 1, 2, 3. It is all over. Adam Firestorm with the victory over beautiful Bryan Alvarez here in Portland Wrestling. Now out Bryan Alvarez firing away with a boot. Action continues after the bell. Goes for the back body drop. No! Face first plant by Adam Firestorm. Your winner once, looks like he'll be your winner twice. Action continues. There's a whip into the far corner. Adam Firestorm follows with a spinning kick. LC, I think Bryan Alvarez has bit off more than he could chew tonight. Miss Rentone really disgusted over in the corner. Adam Firestorm not done. There's a lion salt on top. He hooks him again. 1, 2. 2.5. I thought we had a 3 count earlier in this match, LC. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
I can't believe it. I thought Youth Gone Wild was just adding a little salt to the wound. I thought Alvarez was Alvarez and a 2-time loser, brother.
Well, Mark Watson's hand must have stopped just short of the 3 count. And these eyes of mine need glasses because I thought I saw a 3 count Bryan Alvarez going up top.
Oh, we'll forget about your cataracts, brother. Up and over he goes.
Nobody home. Adam Firestorm back in control, playing a bit of possum. He's climbing up top. Is Reto and Otto really upset? There he goes. Swamp.
Oh, and that one hit.
There's a hook leg. 1, 2, 3. Now it's all over.
A 2-time loser. And does the LC have to look after Miss Rento and Otto tonight, baby?
There's Adam Firestorm, your winner in this match. Once, twice, 3 times, it didn't matter. Bryan Alvarez not up to it. Miss Rento Onato absolutely disgusted with it. Mark Watson explaining to him it was a 3 count this time. No hook the leg. Fair and square, Adam Firestorm, your winner here on Portland Wrestling. Fans will be right back with after a message from our sponsors.
show. Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Yes, Virgil passed away. And it notes here, best known for his run as Ted DiBiase's bodyguard of Virgil in the late 80s, early 90s. That would have been his most famous run. But I will say that when I think of Virgil, Mike Jones, the one thing that sticks out to me more than anything else is, man, could that guy hustle. I mean,
exactly.
Boy, was he, when it comes to like being able to hustle, because here's the thing.
Wrestling superstar Virgil.
Everybody who was a star in that mid to late 80s WWF period, like, I mean, they were a star. Even if they weren't Hulk Hogan. You know, Honky Tonk Man and, you know, like all those guys. Like, everybody knew those guys if you were a wrestling fan. And Virgil was not like a big star. He was DiBiase's bodyguard. Everybody knew him. But, you know, it wasn't like he was a contender for the title or anything like that. He was a bodyguard. And then he split away, which was a big angle. And then he went off on his own, and he really didn't do much really on his own. And then, you know, of course, later he ended up going to WCW. And it was like the same thing. Like, he was there. He was a guy who was there. And like, during the boom period of the 80s and the boom period of the 90s, he was just always around. But not like doing anything, you know what I'm saying? But he was always there. And then when it was, but then when it was over, it was like he always found a way. I mean, he wasn't like, you know, probably making millions or anything close to that, but like he always found a way to capitalize on what fame he developed in the 80s and 90s. And yeah, everyone, you know, they make fun of the picture, wrestling superstar Virgil or everything like that, but
that's part of it. He worked that too.
But my point is, like, you know, that picture of him all by himself and nobody there. It's like, you know, you can get a picture of anybody doing that at some point. I mean, for crying out loud. People take all the pictures. You know, let's go to... I saw pictures from, you know, somebody on Twitter was... They took a photo of the Australia WWE show, which had like 50,000 people in the stadium. But they took it in such a way that, like, the floor looked totally empty. And... It's like, dude, there were 50,000 people in the building. Like, they got to shoot the pyro from somewhere. And unless you want them to shoot that pyro from, like, under your butt on your seat, like, there's got to be a bunch of empty space. It's just how they fit. Like, what are we doing here? Or, hey, you know, one time I went to an AEW pay-per-view, and I was sitting, I guess it would have been opposite the hard cam. So I took a picture of whatever was in the ring, and like you could see the empty area because that's where they put the hard cam. They do it for WWE, they do it for AEW, and like you could see empty seats, and people were like, "Oh, there's nobody there." And it's like, there's 13,000 people in the building. What are you talking about? So yeah, of course you could find some pictures of Virgil with nobody there, but there were lots of days where he was there and he had a crowd and he sold gimmicks and
exactly.
Good for him.
Signing pictures of him sitting there empty and alone.
Great.
I mean, that's the whole thing. And you know what? Unlike a lot of guys, Bryan, and maybe my memory could be poor about this, but look how many guys after WCW closed and ROH became a thing, we saw all of those shoot videos come out. We saw all the shoot interviews where essentially some guys were very truthful about it, and other guys, if you just paid them enough and gave them some gimmicks and sat them down, they would tell you anything. And he actually stayed out on the scene and was able to acquire money and was able to keep his name out there not doing those. Like, he seems to be the one guy. I mean, even Shawn Michaels did an RF shoot video. I mean, there were so many people that did them. I don't remember Mike Jones, Soul Train Jones, Virgil ever doing one of those. So maybe he did, but he didn't have to live off them like a lot of people do. He just went out every weekend and sold his gimmicks, did his thing, told his Olive Garden breadstick stories.
Oh, hey, Sandman's got a story. You want to know a story?
Yeah.
Sandman here says, the guy basically saw me at a convention, told me to come over to him. I did, and we chatted. He saw my WWE encyclopedia and said, I have 3 photos in there. I will sign your book for $30 or something like that.
I love it.
And he would not give back my encyclopedia till I agreed.
Carney's Carney. Somebody said it was a Luchagato. Somebody said it earlier in the chat and everything. Look, just a natural hustler going out there, living off his name, and I don't think hurting anybody in the process. And I think that's another thing.
Well, I mean, he hurt Sandman's checkbook here, but I mean, it's just a little thing. You were at a convention. You knew you were going to spend money, brother.
Well, look how many wrestlers out there have, on the independent scene, have come across Virgil because he was out every weekend as people were on their rises and on their descents again throughout their career. He's a guy that's always kind of been there doing these conventions and doing all this stuff. So, again, sad goes way too early. I didn't expect this. I mean, he is so young, and it's sad that that's happened. But I tell you, you want to talk about, hey, you weren't the champion of the world or anything like that. I don't know what the dude did with his money. Maybe he really needed to be out there hustling. Maybe he just wanted to be near his friends and part of the action. I don't know. But what I do know is you can be successful in this profession and never be the world heavyweight champion, never main event pay-per-views, never have a 4 or 5-star match. But you can be there getting that check and being, again, keeping your name in for so long, even if it was ridiculous that he became Vincent and that he became Shane and he became Wild Curly Bill or whatever it was. Like, that is ridiculous, but hey, a 20-year wrestling career is a 20-year wrestling career.
And Sandman goes, and the next day, try to do it again. After my friend said he had no money for an autograph, he turned to me and said, if you buy one more, I'll sign his for free. I looked and said, no, you already got 3 off me. He says, I learned my lesson. He tried it the second day. Yeah, I got to say, there's a lot of horrible, carny things wrapped around pro wrestling, but there's also some largely harmless, carny things that I still laugh at to this day. It's a carny business.
I'm sorry. Look, it's 3-card Monty. I mean, honestly, there are some... You learn your lesson as a fan. You learn your lesson out there walking the street, what person to stop by and maybe what person not to in some cases, because they'll wrap you up with their rap, and Virgil could do that to people, I guess.
We also got a lot of other news. If you have Virgil stories, you're welcome to send to me, 425-780-7566 via text message or email me, f4wonline@gmail.com. We now know the financial terms of WWE and MLW's antitrust lawsuit settlement. In January 2022, MLW filed a lawsuit accusing WWE of pressuring third parties to abandon contracts, prospective relationships with them. Lawsuit centered around potential deals with Vice TV and streaming service Tubi that MLW claimed WWE interfered with. They reached a settlement in December 2023. Financial details were not disclosed at the time, but they were made public in TKO's Group Holdings 2023 business report that was released on Tuesday. The report reveals that WWE agreed to pay $20 million for the settlement. For the 12-month period ended December 31, the company's consolidated pre-tax results included $34.2 million in costs related to certain litigation matters at UFC and WWE, including the impact of a $20 million charge related to the settlement of an antitrust lawsuit at WWE. Reconciliation of adjusted, anyway, blah, blah, blah. But I had people, texting me yesterday, oh my God, $20 million? And, the funny thing about it is, from the MLW side, holy smokes, they made out $20 million. Which, if I were court,
well,
could be a lot of people asking for money after that one.
Might be an asterisk on that.
But at the same time, and obviously we'll have to pay legal fees and everything, but the point I'm trying to make is, that's probably a lot of money for MLW, but for TKO,
ain't nothing.
Doop.
Drop in the bucket, man.
Drop in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, in relativity, Einstein, they both made out great, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it after the break. Observer Live.
When I first started training, I think it's a lot more common here in the UK to start so young. Whenever I talk to Americans, they're always a bit shocked by it. But most of the people that wrestle in the UK have been doing it since they were very young. But yeah, I started in a little town called Gloucester, which is where my parents lived. And then I found my school in Cardiff, where I live now in Wales, called New Wave Wrestling. And I kind of like grew into myself there. But obviously it's a very little country, so we have to do a lot of kind of, if I could get big here, I can move across and I can get big somewhere else. And it just kind of snowballed very quickly into obviously NXT UK, and then here. Like, I feel like it's all happens really fast, and I have to kind of stop myself and be grateful and take it all in sometimes. So I actually got into wrestling quite late, I guess, as a kid. I think I was only maybe 14 when I first started watching it. So the turnaround between me watching it and deciding I wanted to do it was pretty small. But my older brother was like obsessed with wrestling. He's 10 years older than me, and he'd always kind of stay up and watch the pay-per-views. And I remember one day I was just off school, sick, and I was in the living room just sleeping. And he came down and he's like, "Oh, can I watch the wrestling?" Because obviously it's on at like 3 a.m. here in the UK. So he came down and asked to watch it, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." And I think it was like an elimination chamber. But I remember just seeing it and then being glued. And from that day, I literally stayed up with him every Monday night before school on the Tuesday and watched it with him. And then, I don't know, that very quickly became me just Googling wrestling school. And I literally went to the first one that came up. There happened to be one about 10 minutes from my house, which was very lucky. But yeah, I just kind of, it was one of those things that it's such a strange thing to go and do that I didn't really feel like I could prepare too much for it. The only thing I really knew what to do was to go to the gym. So that's how I ended up being really strong, because I was like, well, wrestlers are strong. So that's just what I did first. And then, yeah, I just kind of turned up. And obviously, being so young, it was quite intimidating, but it was quickly alleviated by the fact that there were so many more young people there than old people. Like, I guess there was just an influx of people of sort of my generation that kind of realized, oh, we can just start, we can just do this. And even if you don't do shows for a few years, at least you're getting your feet in there, you know? So yeah, it's a pretty weird place to grow up, I guess. To kind of become an adult around wrestling is always interesting. But it's always been very good to me, and I've never had any bad times growing up for it.
You know, there's a big thread on our board about the Observer Awards.
Oh, boy.
And Best Booker and et cetera, et cetera.
Best
I
promoter.
urge you all to not go in there, okay? But foolishly, I did on my vacation.
Oh, no.
And, you know, there were people that were arguing that the only reason that WWE's more successful now than they were a couple of years ago was because they went to Peacock, and now everybody can get the shows for like $4.99.
Oh, come on.
And listen, obviously, they have more people watching their pay-per-views than ever because of Peacock. That is absolutely true, okay? That's absolutely true. But that is not the reason that they're more successful than ever. And I bring that up because in the TKO Group Holdings report here, about a UFC pay-per-view lately, they're not $4.99.
No, they're not.
They're not $9.99.
Nope.
They're not the $49.99 that AEW charges. And by the way, they're still doing their normal $140,000 usually. Their pay-per-views are like, I don't even know because I haven't bought one forever, but I think they're like $74.99.
$79.99 or something like that. Plus, you have to have ESPN.
Exactly. So if you want to buy the pay-per-views, you're shelling out almost $100 a month for the UFC pay-per-views, okay?
Mm-hmm.
UFC delivered record financial results. Revenue increased 13% to $1.3 billion. Adjusted EBITDA up to $756 million. UFC live events up 34% to a record $168 million. UFC held 43 events, generated significant viewership gains, set all-time records for gross revenue. UFC sponsorship increased 18% to a record $196 million. New brand partners, renewal increases. The point is, these pay-per-views are more expensive than ever. And meanwhile, and for those of you that have been watching UFC for a long time, and I've been watching since 93, although I don't watch much lately, but, remember the Glory period and Ultimate Fighter and the mid-2000s, and, bro, they're destroying those numbers. This is the hottest UFC has ever been. And they're expecting you to shell out almost $100 a month. So, yeah, Peacock helped with viewership, but that is not why WWE is where they are today, everything being cheaper. They also noted that WWE revenue is up $1.326 billion, up from $1.292 billion. Increase in live event revenue, media rights, sponsorship revenue. There was a decrease in consumer product licensing, however. Their EBITDA increased 4% to $533 million. Overall, corporate adjusted EBITDA was, anyway, they lost $16.5 million, primarily due to an increase in personnel costs, including TKO executive compensation. Site fees were a key growth area for the company, noting the site fees that Elimination Chamber in Perth generated. Still working on securing a home for Raw after the USA Network deal ends, but before the deal with Netflix begins. So they still have 3 months where they don't have a television home for Monday Night Raw. Mark Shapiro made a point mentioning no one should assume any dollar amounts regarding rights fees for Raw in late 2024, but he's confident the show will air during the window of time between USA and Netflix. Let's see. Regarding the UFC antitrust lawsuit set for April, they believe they have the facts on their side, but would not comment further, nor would you expect them to comment. And there was a question of whether Netflix having international rights to WWE content would prevent WWE from developing brands such as NXT Europe. Nick Khan said the deal does not prevent them from creating brands in international markets, although Netflix would get first-look rights for the content period.
Tell you what, I wonder if that then casts any shadow over the only real piece that they have left in the next coming several years when it comes to bringing in more revenue, and that is the WWE Network. Does now Netflix have first right of refusal if this thing goes up, and does Peacock then have to actually stand aside? And that's going to be interesting, I guess, to see, does WWE truly want to jump in bed with Netflix? Because that was going to be the thing with Apple. If you get in bed with Apple, they have got you globally, worldwide. I think that is a Disney thing that they tend to like as well, too. But, it'll be interesting to see where that lands and how much money it gets. And I still think that that's where, if no deal is reached where there's going to be an extension, I have a feeling ultimately that's where Raw is going to end up before it officially ends up on Netflix full time.
Raw on Monday, 1.74 million viewers, 0.57, 18 to 49. Would be considered a mild disappointment. Usually they perform better coming off a pay-per-view, but they did not. Still first on cable by a wide margin. USA, the number one rated television station over the 3 hours. The main event segment with Rhodes and Grayson Waller and the Rhodes-Heyman confrontation did 1.60 million viewers, which is strong considering what the rest of the show did. Cody's drawn. He is drawing.
He is.
But that segment was freaking weird. By the way, should mention very quickly that we have not been doing the full TV reports here on this program because I do full TV reports on other programs, and I don't need to repeat myself all day. If you want the full Raw report, the full NXT report, the full Dynamite report, Rampage, actually I don't do Rampage, Collision, and pay-per-views, your options are you can either listen to the reviews on the subscriber-only shows, or if you are a subscriber, we now are, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, hopefully you have, you're a subscriber. Dave is putting out exclusive news stories that are behind a paywall for subscribers. He had the one about Tamatonga yesterday, and we are now putting all of my TV reports behind that paywall as well. So if you want the full NXT report, and I've expanded them greatly of late. I've got a lot of notes in there, but you can go check them out as a subscriber at WrestlingObserver.com. Raw and NXT are up, and I'll have Dynamite up later on tonight.
I'm looking at this right now. I am caught in a weird time warp here. I opened up a little earlier on today this story about 19 CMLL stars in danger of losing U.S. work visas, and I just opened up another page, and the font is completely different. We have changed over at the website, f4wonline.com,
What?
a new, sleeker look.
What?
Yeah.
We have?
Look at it.
The CMLL stars?
No, look at the front page now. We got all new graphics and everything.
What are you looking at, dude?
Look, hold on here.
I'm looking at the exact same site I've always seen.
Hold on, see, look. See this? You see this? It's like the old font and everything here you got going on here. Now here, you got the new font and everything going on here. See
What's that tab up there? Porn?
That is not porn. There's no porn up there on those tabs, is there? Got to clean the screen,
I
though.
honestly have no idea what you're looking at. What did
Really?
you click to get that?
I just clicked the front page, and it looks like there's all new font up there.
Mine is exactly the same as it's always been.
Very USA Today-ish, I think. I don't know.
Although
about
if you
that,
go
but-
into the newsletters area, it's different.
See? I'm telling you, things change.
But that's the newsletter area, you idiot. I'm talking about the main front page looks exactly the same to me.
Well, did you just see what I just showed you?
Yeah, I don't know what you're
Obviously,
looking at.
it's different then, huh? What the hell's going on around here? What do you got going on?
I don't know.
It's a mystery.
I mean, we have got. I shouldn't even talk about this.
I would say sometimes you think it's a gimmick that Brian has no idea what's going on.
No,
on
Brian
his
Rhodes
own
here.
site.
Brian Rhodes here. I don't believe there have been any major changes. I don't know what's going on with your thing.
Why?
But
why
hey,
is,
listen.
Why is the font completely different on one than the other?
Listen.
I don't get it.
I know there is a font change, Jingu says. Yeah, the newsletter area has a different font. But not the front page.
But the front. Then what is this?
I don't
Then what
know.
is
I
this?
don't know why it looks like that. I don't have any idea why it looks like that. All right, let's stop wasting time. But I will say,
Oh yeah, now we're gonna do that.
I will say we have some big changes coming that we've been working on for like almost a year, and at this rate, probably will be working on almost for another year. But glacial slow change, because what people don't like is rapid, abrupt change.
They don't.
But after this slow change, it could be rather abrupt. Who knows? Anyway, if you guys think I'm not talking about NXT, well,
Oh,
I
boy.
will.
Oh,
But-
which before you do that.
Well, hold on. I'm not getting there yet. I got news.
Good.
Well, first we should mention that Dynamite tonight, we now have 6 segments. We got Sting making his final Dynamite appearance before retirement. In other words, he's going to be on the show. Although after his retirement, we will not be seeing him every week. But I'm sure he will be back here and there. We got BCC versus Eddie Kingston and FTR. An appearance from Will Ospreay. Chris Jericho will be facing Atlantis Jr. with Atlantis.
What?
Yes. The hell did that come from?
I was going to say we couldn't hear about this beforehand.
Yeah, maybe that would have been important advertised in advance. I might have bought a ticket for that, but too late now. Chris Statlander versus Sky Blue. And Hangman Page will announce his status for Revolution. So as we talked about last week, well, I'll talk about it after the break. Because it's called a cliffhanger. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com.
I figured it out.
What's that?
It's different if you're a subscriber as compared to a non-subscriber. Like, we give you everything up there if you're a non-subscriber, but if you click in as a subscriber, it gets a lot sleeker, it gets a lot easier to use, and it's a lot more quality for your dollars, is what's going on there. That's what I figured out.
Well, let me log into my own site, find out if that's true. All right. Okay, I know my membership information, bruh. But how do I get back to the front page? I don't even know how to use my own site. Okay, there we are. Looks exactly the same to me. Okay. Will you shut up for a second? Last week, Hangman Page, for those of you that don't recall, did a match, did a flip, sold his ankle, got out, and we never saw... Actually, we did see him again. He was laying on the ground screaming at a cameraman to not film him as he grabbed his ankle and screamed loudly to ringsiders that he thought that his ankle was broken. And then he very quickly got out of there. And, that night, as I asked people what was going on, I mean, they didn't know. They thought he was hurt. And it turns out he was not hurt. I want to make sure I don't say that he shot his own ankle because I don't know. I presume that he talked about this with Tony. But regardless, he sold a potentially broken ankle because he had a personal situation that may have resulted in him having to miss the pay-per-view. And so he wasn't sure if he's going to make the pay-per-view or not. So he did the injury angle to, have a cover story if he ended up not being able to make the pay-per-view.
An exit valve.
So they have now announced that Hangman will announce his status for Revolution. And I don't know, I want to make this clear, I don't know what he is going to say, okay? But I did get the impression that people believe he's going to make the pay-per-view. Everything's going to work out. So that could change. I mean, he may announce my ankle. I mean, he could say, my ankle's really bad. I'm going to do everything in my power to be there. But I think with AEW, like, they usually, they don't want to false advertise or promise something that may not happen. So the fact that they said he's going to announce it, I think he's going to either say today, I'm there or I'm not. And my guess is he's going to say that he's going to be there. So we'll find out tonight. But that's the story on Hangman Page.
And you might as well tease it. Tease it for the show, make it a reason for people to tune in, or at least add to the reasons that you want people to tune in. So good. And hopefully whatever it is that caused the need to try to put in this exit valve, whatever it is, hopefully it's all good on his end.
I think my nose is bleeding.
That's really?
Anything else?
Is it dry in there?
Maybe in this room.
Oof, man.
Any blood?
Oh, man.
All right, several
you could have
wrestlers.
worked an angle there. You could have pulled up like this, like Paisley. No. Oh, come on.
I'm trying to plug my nose and give you a chance to talk about something, but I guess I just have to keep going.
No, I mean, the old days of doing cocaine, that would happen all the time. That's usually something that would happen, That would be the look if you're looking at Bryan right now. If you're watching this on video, tilted up with his nose like that, he used to bang a line, put a little water up there, make sure you got it all, make sure you got all of the value for your money. Like a subscriber at F4W.
All right, that's enough. We're killing the people. According to a report from PW Insider, the U.S. government is in the process of canceling the work visas for several luchadors, including those who have recently performed on AEW programming. According to a post from Lucha Blog, Soberano Jr., Templario, Volador Jr., Hechicero, Blue Panther, and Mascara Dorada are among those believed to be losing their work visas. And several others in danger of having their visas canceled as well. Breakdown said the situation said to be due to a breakdown of communication between CMLL and the American Indie Full-Blown Pro Wrestling out of Texas, who had been sponsoring the visas. Full-Blown owner Jerry Cadena was contacted by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security regarding the visa applications. They informed him of an issue relating to the visas, although it's not clear what the issue is. Homeland Security also informed Cadena that he could be accused of fraud if the issue caused by visa applications to be flagged. CMLL then informed him they would handle the situation However, he has not heard back from CMLL since. Welcome to working with various promotions.
Really?
He has now informed Homeland Security he is no longer working with CMLL, and any agreements he had with talent have been terminated as of today, February 28th.
Shame on everybody. Shame on everybody involved in this for not getting this thing done and getting people over and dotting I's and crossing T's. Completely ridiculous. And I understand that when you work with CMLL, AAA, a lot of different promotions in Mexico, there are a lot of issues and a lot of headaches that you have to deal with and all that sort of stuff. But this is, on the Texas end of things, on the American end of things, you're bringing these guys in for a huge weekend, not only for them, but for the fans as well, too. You're putting on this big show, WrestleMania weekend, and it's going to be a big deal. And then, this goes and happens. It's just... This is really, really a frustrating thing. And, if CMLL, and again, we'll have to see. I mean, they said that they would handle the situation. Now, Cadena hasn't heard back from the promotion. I mean, it's just, this is all really frustrating. And who pays the price on this? Obviously, the talent, and it cuts a hole into their pocket with the money they thought they were going to make. But it is also a spit in the face to the fans that were hoping that they were going to be there. So, that's really, again, a nasty situation. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on it or not.
Well, the one thing I will say is, yes, this absolutely sucks. But I will say that at least they'll have plenty of work in Mexico. I mean, I've seen visa issues where people in Canada have visa issues and can't go work elsewhere. And it's like, what are you going to do in Canada? Like, there's some shows that you can do, but it's like you're greatly restricted as to what you can actually do to work if you can't get out of Canada. Whereas, if you can't get into America to work, it's like you're not going to make as much money. I mean, I'm sure that AEW is going to pay them, probably better than it would make for some random mini show in Mexico.
Well, that's
but
the thing.
You can at least do some work.
You can, but I mean, the American dollar compared to that peso, selling your gimmicks at American prices as opposed to, again. Because, again, with all the bootlegs and everything else, you already have an issue with selling merchandise down there. You kind of throw your hands up. But, like, the stuff that you're taking in, you're selling at American prices. You're getting dollars for them. And if this has got any effect on what could happen during Mania weekend, because if anybody was relying on that, I mean, I don't know. So that sucks. I mean, it absolutely stinks. One thing that I wanted to say, too, because I was going to bring this up when you were talking about what WWE and TKO wanted us to know about how much money they made, is that they are trying to prevent us from finding out some other money that they may have made. And they filed a complaint, according to WrestleNomics, yesterday on February 16th. And I don't know if you want to get into this story or not, but they are suing the Texas Attorney General to prevent the agreement of to the release of the agreement that they had with the city of San Antonio to bring the Royal Rumble there. And it just blows my mind that they are claiming that it would break trade secrets. And there is, information in there that is completely, it can't make it out. I'm sorry, you're a publicly traded company.
That is a pretty serious. I mean,
it's a publicly traded company. This is the money, though, of the state of Texas. Even on WWE side, if they want to try to hide this or obfuscate it somehow when it comes to their filings, okay, fine. But as a shareholder, I still would probably want to know how much you're getting out of this. And on the flip side, if I'm a resident of Texas and a denizen of San Antonio, I kind of want to know how much I had to pay for this, especially if I'm not a wrestling fan and didn't care about the event being here.
Well, my presumption is the actual reason that they don't want it out would be, I guess an analogy would be, let's say that, and I'll use Court Bauer actually, because you just made $20 million. Okay, let's say that, somebody wants to know, what did you, what are you paying whoever, Fatu? And, of course, I'm going to tell you I'm paying Fatu, because let's say he's paying Fatu a lot of money.
Well,
you find out he's paying Fatu a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, you want a lot of money. Yeah. So I would presume the reason they don't want that out is because they're trying to get all these cities to bid. And so if they gave them, a great deal, and it's we don't want that out, that we give it to them for X amount. We want to get X amount. But the way that they worded it makes it sound like, what are you doing for this site fee? Like,
but that's
weird.
Site fees have been public for a long time anyway. I mean, it's not like site fees where, I mean, a lot of times that would judge like the beginning of a promotion of a fight. Did the Hilton compared to Trump Castle pay $1.5 million to have this fight here? And if there were people that weren't bidding, it's like, okay, that was kind of a bellwether on, all right, how's the promotion of this fight going to go? So to me, it is shady, and I get it from WWE's side in some ways about it being proprietary or whatever, or not wanting it out there. But the bottom line is, if nothing else, on the flip side of that, when it's money that's coming from a state, and you should be, that type of thing has got to be at some point or another during the fiscal year, that has got to be reported and put out to the public, because again, it's their tax money that's being used for this. And this happens with Super Bowls, with concerts, we're seeing it in Virginia, with the possibility of Ted Leonsis wanting to move the Capitals and the Wizards there. That, like, there are people that don't care about this stuff. They don't want it, and they don't want any of their money spent on it. So this is going to be an interesting little fight to see how this goes.
All right, here are the big notes from NXT. I didn't really like the show at all. There was exactly one good match on the show, which was the Heritage Cup match with Noam Dar and Charlie Dempsey. That was actually a great match. And that was it. We have 3 of the dumbest angles in all of pro wrestling going on in NXT at the same time. My favorite show. 3 of the dumbest angles in all of wrestling. You've got the angle where Dijak has his own personal dungeon with a padded room where he kidnaps people against their will and puts them in a straitjacket. That's stupid. We have got the Lyra and what's her name? Tatum Paxley, which is just beyond stupid. And I'd need hours to talk about how stupid that one is. But I'll actually tell you the short version right now. It's 2024, and they are doing a storyline where one person is aggressively trying to hook up with another person. The other person doesn't want it, but the first person keeps pushing. And that person's supposed to be a babyface. Not to mention how hideous the acting is. I mean, this storyline absolutely sucks. And now they've added a new storyline, which actually is so stupid that it might grow on me, okay? Miss NXT, Ariana Grace, okay? She's been here for months. She's been a wrestler. All of a sudden this week, her gimmick is she doesn't understand why all the people in NXT want to fight each other. We shouldn't be fighting.
Well,
we have a character who doesn't understand why the professional wrestlers are wrestling each other. She wants them to stop wrestling each other. And she is a wrestler. That is one for the ages. Now, we will talk about the main event angle quickly when we get back. Observer Live.
Oh, it was so cool. It was terrifying more than anything. I almost wish I fell off right at the end, and I almost wish I'd have fallen off earlier on, because at least it would have been done and it would have been out of my system. But the fear of falling off of that thing is so much worse than actually falling off of it. But it was so cool. Like, the amount of things you can do in a match like that, if you think of all the things you can do in a match, and then you add 6 other people, and then you add this huge structure that you can all hang off of, you know, like, there's just so many ways to get around it. And obviously I was sharing it with some incredible women too. Lots of women that I'd never even wrestled before. So that was a whole thing in itself. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a great time, but I reckon I'd like to do another one, but maybe not loads of them. Yeah, it is cool. I guess that match was especially it being the first TNA pay-per-view in a long time. There was a lot of eyes on that show, and obviously the first match on the show. So it did really kind of throw me into the deep end a little bit of so many people that might not have even been watching TNA at the time had tuned in because this was the first pay-per-view back, and then I'm one of the first people they see, and they might not have even ever heard of me. So it was a really nice way, I think, and a really good showcase for me to kind of show what I'm all about in like a really exciting way, as opposed to just being, brought on TV, which would have been great, but it was so exciting to do it, in Vegas on live pay-per-view. Like, there was so many cool things about it. Yeah, it's great. I think it's really kind of exactly what I needed at this point in my career. Obviously, like you said, I was in NXT UK a bit, but I was even younger when I was there. I was about 19 when I signed, so it's a lot to handle at a very young age. And then I had a year or two out just doing the independents like throughout the UK, and then coming over to Canada, and we started doing stuff with Impact at the time. It really helped kind of, I think, level me up. As much as obviously I'd been in WWE and that was really cool, I don't think I was necessarily ready for that sort of stage at my age and my experience level, But it gave me so many tools that I think now I can bring to somewhere like TNA, where I'm a bit more grown up, a bit more experienced, and a lot more prepared for it. So I really think it's like the perfect place for me to be right now, to kind of show the rest of the world what, say, here in the UK, everybody else already knows. So it's nice to be able to share it and get a bit more kind of like international notoriety, I suppose. It was crazy. Like, obviously we'd done a little bit with them with Subculture. So it wasn't out of nowhere, but it was very much like, okay, like they understand what I'm trying to put out into the world. And I think that's the biggest thing I've got from it, is that there's a lot of trust in someone giving you a job like that. It's them going, we know that you know what you're doing and we want to help you get there.
So I don't really want to I don't want to bury it till I see what they do, but I will say I thought it was so simple going to WrestleMania, and that is that Mello faces Ilya next week on Roadblock. Mello wins the title. Trick returns. You do Trick versus Mello for the title at Mania, and Trick wins the belt. That's the easiest thing. The other option is, well, Mello goes for the title. Trick costs him the title. And then you do Trick versus Mello with no title on the line.
Yeah.
Which you can do.
And Tony D against Ilya.
Well, that's what they did. They totally changed it up. So Tony D is now in the title picture. Next week at Roadblock, it is Tony D versus Carmelo Hayes. The winner gets Ilya. And so my presumption is Trick is going to screw Carmelo out of that match. And then we have Trick versus Mello and Ilya versus Tony D for the title over Mania Weekend, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony D is great. But I just, the NXT title, I mean this with all due respect, it doesn't frickin' matter. And Trick is so over. He's the most over guy on the show by far. There is no reason that he can't win that title and be the NXT champion.
Hold on.
The fans want it.
I'll tell you why. Because you know what they want to see more than that? Some awesome match where there's probably a lot of plunder involved, and at the end, it's Trick standing over Mello, and then regardless of if Tony D, Ilya, or anybody else has that title, at some point, here we go after Mania. Now we have the true build of Trick to that title for this year. And maybe you don't want him to take it off Ilya. Maybe you want it to be off of a D'Angelo or somebody like that. We'll see.
Well, he would be taking it off Carmelo, which is the best of all worlds.
I don't believe so.
Why do we have to
I don't think it
argue
matters.
about something?
I don't think it matters.
Of course it does. It's Trick and Carmelo. It's a 3-year feud. Maybe more. I'm out of here. Seen it out with Lance. Observer Live.